The pandemic exposed the vast wealth gap in internet access across the US. Suddenly, we could see how critical health and safety information, education, and even just working was largely inaccessible to many Americans. Tucked into the December coronavirus bill passed by Congress in the last administration was important relief for households struggling to afford internet access. A program called the Emergency Broadband Benefit started on May 12th. Here to explain this to us is David Gauthier, president of Mass Access. Hi, David.
Hi, Heather. Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me, Corey.
So, David, just tell us, what does this program offer and who is eligible?
Sure. So it's a federal benefit that the FCC is offering. So Congress was kind enough to grant some money to the Federal Communications Commission. So folks can apply for a break on these broadband services. So it is up to $50 per household or $75 per household if the household happens to be on tribal lands. And there also are some discounts on hardware. So there is up to $100 on a new laptop or tablet or something. So the FCC is really recognizing that broadband is, especially during the pandemic, is really necessary for folks to stay together and to connect with their loved ones and with their local governments as well. So that so this is a way that folks can defer some of that cost of expensive broadband, so make sure that they're connected with everybody that they need to be connected with. There's a certain set of criteria that's being set by the FCC, and folks can apply to see if they can come up with this discount. And they can do that in a couple of different ways. They can reach out to their broadband provider in their local city or town to see if, number one, if that provider is participating in the program, and number two, how folks might be able to apply. And there's also a website that they can check out. It's fcc.gov/broadband benefit. And lastly, I have a phone number, and I have to look off to the side here. It's 833-511-0311. And you can request an application be mailed out to you. So for those folks who want to do things more traditionally, there are a few different ways to get access to all of these applications. Once you go through the application process, you can find out if you are eligible to get some help. And like I said, it's either an ongoing cost to cut down on the monthly bills for your broadband access, or you can apply for a one-time benefit for computer hardware, be it a laptop or a tablet or something like that.
And David, for those who aren't familiar with Mass Access, can you just explain what it is all about?
Sure. So Mass Access is what I like to call an advocacy agency for community media here in Massachusetts. So we are a group of volunteers who sit on a board of directors, and what we do is provide different sorts of resources for community media professionals and producers. So we offer things like events, our spring conference and our fall meet and greets to get folks together to share best practices, and we're trying to provide more education. We provide things like access to a Mass Access forum, so our members can share information back and forth, and a shared server. So we're sharing, uploads and downloads of content that folks can use at different parts of the state. And that's been very helpful, I think, too, especially during the pandemic. We have a lot of key contributors from the state, whether it be the Massachusetts House of Representatives, who uploads their proceedings, as well as Governor Baker's press conferences on nearly a daily basis. And we're also sharing a lot of information and content with each other. So in a time where many PEG access centers are without producers, we're able to fill in some of those gaps in programming with content from other stations. We're able to be a centralized hub for those sorts of things.
Any more community media updates we should know about?
Mass Access introduced a bill that has a very long title. So we like to trim it down, and we call it basically the streaming bill. community media stations across Massachusetts are losing funding year after year due to cord cutting. So as most of you know, up to 95 or 100% of funding for community media stations comes from cable subscriptions. And as more people go away from cable subscriptions into more streaming services, that means less money for the community media station. So our feeling is that these streaming companies are using the same public rights of way to sell their products that the cable companies are. So we do believe that they should be held to the same exact type of fee that cable companies are. Now, remember that these cable companies are federally mandated to give up to 5% of their gross annual revenues back to the municipality that they serve. And that's because they're using the public right of way to sell their product. We believe that streaming companies like Hulu and Amazon and Netflix, all of those big ones out there, they're using the same public right of way, but they are not supporting their local municipalities. So we believe that the state should be putting an assessment on the streaming companies. And this is not a money grab by PEG access centers. This is a necessity. We think that as the funding from cable continues to decline, that the funding from streaming will eventually go up and we will meet somewhere in the middle. This bill has the added effect of not only benefiting community media stations, 20% of the assessments that are collected will stay in the state's general fund and 40% of it will go back to the municipalities. So it's going to be helping local governments as well. This is something that has been done in about a dozen other states across the country in different forms. To our knowledge, this is the first bill that names community media as a specific beneficiary of this type of assessment. And I'm proud to say that it's being sort of duplicated in different states as well. So states like New York and Vermont are starting to use this Massachusetts model to try to pass their own legislation. So we're very hopeful for the future of community media, not only here in Massachusetts, but across the country. And it's something we've been talking about in these circles for a decade, right? We understand that, it's not the salad days anymore where, the it technology was really cable. And that's where the Federal Cable Act came, and that's where the benefit of having community media stations really was born out of all of that. But technology has changed and evolved. And I'm also the first in line to say that, you know what, community media has evolved. If if it weren't for community media here in Massachusetts during this pandemic, I'm confident in saying that a lot of local governments would have ceased to operate. There are many, many important roles that we are playing during this pandemic, whether it's bringing, important community events to the public, whether it's community meetings or sporting events or those kinds of things. Without the community media station, a lot of these things aren't happening. And that's a difficult thing for folks to actually grasp at this point. It really needs to be funded going forward, because I feel as though it's one of those things where we've been talking about it, but I think now it's here. All right, we're in the next couple of years, we're going to start to see some real loss of services offered. People are going to lose jobs. And if something's not done, if it's not this streaming bill, something else has to be done. We've got to be funded in a different way. A lot of community media centers have tried to be very creative as to finding alternative revenue sources for their operations. Well, that doesn't work for everyone. And there are a lot of very small operations here in Massachusetts, and we're looking out for them as well.
Well, I just want to finish by adding that there is yet another site where people can access information on the emergency broadband, and that is getemergencybroadband.org. So you have the FCC site, and there is also a similar site for a lot of good information.
Yeah, I've seen both, Heather, and I think that they're both very helpful. It's pretty much the same information, just brought to you in a couple of different styles. So I guess you can check out both and then which one you like best.
There you go. Well, thank you so much for talking to us today about all of this really important information. And we'll be following up soon about this piece of legislation that's really important for all of us.
Thanks to you both.
Thanks, David.